Welcome back to our channel and the continuing story of Avery and Alessandro. Last time love was tested, secrets shattered trust, and a betrayal left Alessandro questioning everything. But the truth is only just beginning to surface. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, please start there first. The link is in the description. Now, stay with us as the full story unfolds and the ultimate revelations come to light.
Alessandro's footsteps echoed through the grand hallway, each step deliberate, heavy with a tension that seemed to thrum in the walls of the mansion. Rain streaked the windows outside, a soft drumbeat that mirrored the racing of his heart. He reached the library door, pausing for a single breath. Every instinct in him screamed to brace himself, to prepare for the confrontation he had been dreading since the call. He pushed the door open. The room was dim, the late afternoon light casting long shadows across the shelves of leather-bound books. Avery stood near the window, her hands folded gently over her stomach, her eyes lifted toward the storm outside. The sight of her, the woman he loved with a depth that terrified him, made his chest tighten, a mix of longing and dread pressing down at once. His voice, low and measured but carrying a weight that demanded attention, cut through the quiet. "We need to talk." Avery turned sharply at the sound of his voice, her heart skipping a beat. For a moment, her eyes searched his face, trying to read the expression she had loved for months, the warmth, the reassurance, the devotion she had always relied upon. But now there was something darker there. A shadow, sharp and sudden, that made her chest tighten in confusion. "Alessandro," she murmured, unsure how to begin. The words seemed to falter on her lips. "What's wrong?" His gaze didn't waver, piercing, demanding honesty before he would even allow for explanation. He stepped closer, the space between them charged with unspoken fear and tension. "It's about AJ," he said, his voice low, measured, a knife hidden in the calm. He told me what happened. That you came on to him." Avery froze, shock splintering through her. Her eyes darted down to her blouse, the small tear at the seam now suddenly, horrifyingly, amplified in significance. He came on to me," she said, her voice trembling. "Look at my blouse. I didn't. Nothing happened, Alessandro." Her hands instinctively moved to press the fabric, as if that alone could prove the truth. Alessandro's jaw tightened, his blue eyes narrowing as the storm outside mirrored the storm inside him. Each flash of lightning seemed to underscore the accusation he couldn't shake. He wanted to believe her, wanted to reach out, to trust the woman who had become his heart, his home. But AJ's words were etched into his mind, unrelenting. "I couldn't believe it. I thought you should know. I'm sorry, brother." He shook his head, his gaze fixed on her, unwavering. He spoke finally, his voice low, controlled, but with a sharp edge that made the words cut. "And I knew you'd call to lie. That's exactly what AJ said when he warned me." He took another step closer, the weight of months of trust and love pressing down on both of them. "He told me everything," he said, voice steady but cold. "Every detail. He said you try to lie and twist it, make it seem like he came on to you, when it was you all along. That you try to cover yourself, Avery. But I can't ignore it." Avery's eyes widened, disbelief and heartbreak mingling in a raw, painful expression. "Alessandro, no. That's not true," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You know me. You know how I feel about you, about us. How could you think I'd do something like that?" Her hands rose, trembling, a futile attempt to reach him, to bridge the distance his trust had suddenly created. Her words hung in the air, heavy and desperate, but Alessandro's expression remained rigid, haunted by the certainty AJ had sown. He could feel the storm of emotions raging inside her, mirrored by the storm outside, yet all he could see was the betrayal he believed had happened. Alessandro's gaze didn't waver, but a flicker of pain crossed his features, fleeting yet undeniable. He swallowed hard, the words catching in his throat, yet he forced them out, each one cutting deeper than any knife. He took a slow step closer, voice quiet but cutting. "I want to believe you. I really do. But the proof, Avery." AJ's certainty, the way he explained it all. "It's impossible to ignore. I can't. I can't just pretend this isn't true." Avery's eyes widened in horror, disbelief, and hurt all at once. Her lips parted as if to speak, to protest, but her voice caught in her throat. "Alessandro, no. I didn't. Avery. I believe him. I trust AJ over you. I wanted to believe you, I swear I did, but he sounded certain. He sounded like he had no doubt. And there's proof," he said. "Pictures." Her breath caught. Her fingers instinctively brushed the small tear in her blouse again, a testament to her innocence that suddenly felt useless in the face of Alessandro's conviction. "Alessandro, please. Look at me. I didn't do anything wrong." He tried to. He suggested that we. "I swear, I didn't." Her voice broke, unable to finish the sentences that were tumbling out, tears threatening to spill as desperation laced every syllable. Avery's breath hitched, disbelief and heartbreak mingling. The library felt suffocating, the air thick with tension, as though every shadow and beam of light conspired to emphasize the widening chasm between them. For a moment, there was only silence, except for the patter of rain, the storm outside echoing the tension between them. Alessandro's chest heaved slightly, as though the weight of betrayal, real or imagined, pressed on him from every side. He took a step back, the distance between them widening, tangible and painful. Avery's hands fell to her sides, trembling, her chest tight with the sting of disbelief. How could you even think that about me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "What about trust? What about our promises? No lies. No cheating. Always put each other first. I thought you knew me, Alessandro. And I thought I knew you too." Alessandro stepped back, the weight of his own disbelief pressing down on him. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to see the woman he loved in front of him, not as a threat, not as a betrayer, but as the Avery who had always been his heart. His gaze was unyielding, though, cold in a way that shattered her. He could see the shock and hurt etched across her face, and yet, he could not move past AJ's words. They replayed relentlessly, a chain he could not break. Every fiber of his being screamed in conflict, love battling doubt, desire battling devastation. But the certainty AJ had instilled in him refused to waver. Avery's chest heaved as her eyes burned, the tears she was trying to hold back breaking free. Her lips quivered, her voice rose with both anger and heartbreak, cracking with raw emotion. "If you don't believe me. If you actually believe that I..." Her words faltered, a sob catching in her throat. "If you think that about me. I can't. I won't stay. I can't stay with a man who would think so little of me, who believes lies and accusations over me." Avery turned sharply, her tears spilling freely now, and without another word, she fled the library. Her sobs echoed down the hall, her footsteps fast and unrelenting, each one carrying the weight of heartbreak, betrayal, and finality. Alessandro remained frozen, chest tight, eyes wide, as if the very air around him had solidified. He did not move to stop her, even though his heart was screaming at him to do so. He wanted to call after her, to reach out, to make her stay, but the words wouldn't come. He couldn't. AJ's warning, the conviction in his younger brother's voice, the images his mind conjured from the call, everything had sealed her fate in his eyes. They held him captive, immovable. All he could do was stand there, heart pounding, listening to the soft echo of her footsteps fade into the distance, and the relentless rhythm of rain against the windows. A storm outside to match the storm within, and a heart left utterly shattered. In that quiet, heavy moment, Alessandro felt the weight of everything collapse around him. The woman he loved, the one he had trusted with his heart and life, was gone. And for the first time in months, he felt utterly alone, in a world that suddenly felt empty, dark and cruel. He sank into the high-backed chair at the library desk, running a hand through his dark hair, his blue eyes distant, focused on nothing yet seeing everything. The echoes of Avery's footsteps still reverberated in the mansion, mingling with the distant rumble of the storm outside. His chest ached, heavy with disbelief, confusion, and a growing anger he couldn't fully name. He remembered the call from AJ just a couple of hours ago, the words that had shattered the fragile peace of his heart. His brother's first words, hesitant yet grave, had set the tone. "I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to say anything at first, but, you need to know," AJ's voice had wavered, but only enough to make it believable, to make the truth sound undeniable. Alessandro had listened, heart sinking, every beat reinforcing what he now could not unhear. Each phrase echoed in his mind, looping relentlessly, a cruel chorus that refused to fade. He closed his eyes, wishing, praying, for even a flicker of doubt, but the certainty in AJ's voice had been absolute. The second part of the call had been even more crushing. "I thought you should know. What happened with Avery? You deserve to hear the truth from me first." His voice had trembled slightly, a subtle tension that made the words feel sincere, unavoidable. Alessandro remembered how the syllables had hit him, each one a hammer blow to his trust, each pause loaded with an implication that he couldn't ignore. He could still hear AJ's careful framing. The way he had implied that Avery would try to spin the story, that she would call and twist the events to protect herself, to make it seem like he had made the move. Every calculated syllable, delivered with brotherly concern, had landed perfectly, planting doubt, confusion, and a deep, gnawing hurt that Alessandro could not shake. Alessandro's fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. The library felt smaller, the shadows longer. He had wanted, had prayed, that the call would be a misunderstanding. But every carefully chosen word, every hesitation had convinced him that the woman he loved, the woman he had trusted with every part of his heart, had crossed a line he could not ignore. Finally, AJ's last words echoed in Alessandro's mind, relentless and haunting. "I'm sorry, brother. I had to tell you. You need to know the truth before she calls to twist it around." The apology was genuine, yes, but it cut like steel. Alessandro could almost hear AJ's internal struggle, the boy who had grown up under his guidance, torn between loyalty to him and the need to protect him from bad news. Alessandro's chest tightened as he replayed the imagery AJ had painted. Avery making a move, the brief touch of her hands, the moment he was supposed to have misread. The way AJ had carefully tried to distance himself from Avery, while she insisted they have an affair. All of it had made the story undeniable. Every beat, every pause in his brother's voice had described the betrayal perfectly. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, trying to reconcile the woman he loved with the words he had heard. The library was silent but for the storm, the soft drum of rain against the windows echoing his heartbeat. He could feel the tension coiling tighter in his chest, a coil of hurt, disbelief, and a desperate longing to believe that it wasn't true. But AJ's words had already struck deep. Alessandro's hands trembled slightly as he set his phone down, the weight of AJ's words pressing on him like a physical force. The storm outside seemed to grow louder, lightning flashing through the windows as if the heavens themselves mirrored the chaos in his chest. Every memory of Avery. Their first coffee together, the quiet nights at her apartment, the laughter, the confessions. Fought against the image AJ had painted. He ran a hand over his face, jaw tight, mind racing. How could she? The question repeated in his head, over and over, though part of him recoiled at even thinking it. She wouldn't. She couldn't. And yet, AJ's certainty, AJ's careful phrasing, the implication that Avery herself might try to cover it up, had shattered that trust. And she hadn't defended herself just now, had she? She didn't offer any explanations, something to make him sway and believe her over his brother. For a long moment, Alessandro sat in silence, the phone resting on the desk like a relic of devastation, the shadows in the library pressing closer. He felt betrayed, not just by what AJ had said, but by the impossibility of reconciling his love for Avery with the image AJ had painted. The storm raged on outside, and inside, Alessandro's world tilted on its axis, unsteady, fragile, and unbearably heavy. Alessandro finally rose from the chair, his body rigid, every step toward the center of the library weighted with disbelief and heartache. The call had left him hollow, each word of AJ's story embedding itself like a knife in his chest. He could feel the storm's chill through the tall windows, yet the cold inside him was far sharper. His blue eyes darkened with a storm of their own. He knew, in this instant, that nothing would feel the same. Not her touch, not her laughter, not the trust he had once carried in his chest. He could not confront Avery again, not until he had fully processed everything. In that instant, the storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest inside him, leaving him suspended between love, trust, disbelief, betrayal, and loss. All feelings collided in one unbearable moment. 7 months had passed, but time had not healed Alessandro, it had only sharpened the edges of his grief. He moved through the DeMarco mansion like a shadow, hollow-eyed, tense, a man caught between memory and obsession. The storm of his emotions, rage, heartbreak, distrust, had become his constant companion, and yet he never sought Avery, and neither did she. He didn't even know where she was now. He hadn't seen her in all these months, not since the last time she left running, tears streaming down her beautiful face, claiming she was innocent. He had trusted AJ implicitly, even when that trust gnawed at him, even when every part of his soul longed for the woman who had once been his everything. The Conti family had not eased their attacks. The past months had seen countless skirmishes, each more brazen than the last, and Alessandro had fought tooth and nail to maintain control. Finn, his second-in-command, and several trusted allies, had been by his side for every brutal negotiation, every strike and counterstrike. In the quiet moments between strategy and retaliation, Alessandro often found himself staring at the ornate walls of the mansion, wondering why the Countess had become so relentless. The answers were elusive, but he knew instinctively that something had shifted. The attacks were no longer simple power plays, they were personal, targeted, and dangerously persistent. He rubbed his temples, trying to still the restless thoughts, and finally spoke, low and steady to Finn, who was sitting across the table, maps and documents spread between them. Finn. Put moles in their ranks. I want to know why they've escalated like this. Every move, every word, I want it tracked. Something doesn't add up. Finn nodded immediately, the weight of the task mirrored in his expression. Understood, Don. We'll get eyes everywhere. Nothing will slip past us. Alessandro exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the table. He wanted to think of the Countess as just another enemy, one that could be outmaneuvered, outsmarted, but deep down, he sensed there was more at play, something calculated, something vicious, and directed not just at him, but at everything he held dear. Alessandro's blue eyes, usually sharp and commanding, were clouded with a restless intensity. The mansion's grand hallways felt emptier than ever, each echo of his footsteps a reminder of absence, the absence of Avery, the absence of certainty, the absence of peace. He moved mechanically from room to room, checking reports, responding to messages from allies, attending to every detail of the ongoing attempted siege on his family's power. His days were always full, from sunrise until late at night, yet something was missing, leaving a hollow feeling in his chest. Avery. Always her. Despite the constant motion, his mind drifted. He remembered the warmth of Avery's hands, the softness of her laugh, the nights spent in quiet conversation, and the plans they had made for a life together. And then AJ's voice cut through his memory, sharp and unwavering, bringing him back to the betrayal he had never been able to undo. The thought of Avery, intertwined with AJ's carefully constructed narrative, caused a pain he couldn't heal. Finn watched him silently for a moment before speaking again. Alessandro, we've held them off, but they're testing us, probing for weaknesses. You need to focus on the present, not what-ifs. Alessandro's jaw clenched, the weight of leadership pressing on him as heavily as the storm of personal torment inside. I know. But this intensity. The Countess wouldn't risk this much unless someone is pushing them. Someone wants more than power. Find out who, Finn. I need answers. Finn's gaze was steady, unwavering. We'll find them, Dawn. And when we do, they'll regret ever challenging the DeMarco family. Alessandro nodded once, a motion small but deliberate, signaling both determination and exhaustion. The war outside mirrored the war inside him, a relentless, unyielding fight he could not afford to lose. Alessandro leaned back in the chair behind his desk, rubbing his face with a rough hand. 7 months. 7 months of anger, longing, and the gnawing ache of absence. He had loved Avery with everything in him, and yet the seed of doubt, planted by AJ's words, had grown into a wall he could not scale. She was out there somewhere, living her life, and he had made the choice, consciously or not to seek her, to let her go, while allowing his trust in AJ to remain unshaken. Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the tension within the DeMarco mansion, unaware of the silent war Alessandro fought inside himself. The Conti attacks, relentless and escalating, demanded his attention, and he would not allow personal anguish to weaken his control. Still, every decision, every strategy, was tinged with the shadow of the woman who had vanished from his life. Finn's voice broke through his reverie once more, steady and calm. Dawn, I'll have eyes and ears everywhere. Nothing escapes us. Anne. I'll keep you informed about every move they make. Alessandro's hand clenched on the desk, knuckles white. Good. I need to know everything. Nothing left to chance. They're wrong if they think they can outmaneuver us. And if they think they can weaken me while I carry this emptiness inside me. They're even more wrong. The room fell silent, save for the muted hum of activity from the mansion staff and the distant city noise. Alessandro stared at the documents, the maps, the reports, all of it a fortress against the chaos threatening to consume him. Yet in the quiet, in the spaces between strategy and action, the ache of loss remained, a constant, unwelcome companion. AJ sat alone in the dimly lit study of mansion he shared with his mother, the city's neon glow spilling through the blinds in jagged lines across the floor. 7 months had passed since that fateful day, yet the memory of Avery's face, the confusion, the shock, the betrayal she had never deserved, weighed on him like a stone. He had done what Mona had asked, convinced himself it was necessary to protect Alessandro, but the cost had been far greater than he imagined. Every time he thought of his brother, the image of Alessandro's devastated expression haunted him. AJ hated the role he had played in this, hated the lie he had become a part of. He had believed, fully and without question, that Avery had been unfaithful, that she was having an affair with an old boyfriend. That's what Mona had told him anyway. Yet the cruel certainty of the story he told Alessandro did not sit easily with him. Guilt gnawed at him in quiet moments, in sleepless nights, in every reflection of his own eyes. He pressed his palms against his temples, whispering under his breath, "I did what I thought I had to. But at what cost? Look at him. He's broken. And for what? For me to feel justified?" AJ's chest tightened as he sank back into the chair, the weight of responsibility and remorse heavy on his shoulders. He had believed he was doing the right thing, protecting his brother, saving him from his unfaithful fiancée and a potential scandal, but the truth, if it ever came out, would shatter them all, and he knew it. He ran a hand through his hair, tugging at the strands in frustration. 7 months, he muttered, voice barely audible over the hum of the city outside. 7 months he's been a shadow of himself, and it's all because of me. AJ's mind replayed the steps Mona had orchestrated, each one a cruel, precise cut to Alessandro's heart. He remembered the afternoon at the mansion, Avery's startled expression, the small tear in her blouse, and how easily Mona had turned the moment into a weapon. Every detail, every hesitation he had shown, had been twisted into proof of her betrayal, or so Alessandro had believed. And AJ, trapped in the web of manipulation, had delivered the news, calling his brother with words designed to wound, to protect, and to deceive, all at once. The guilt pressed heavier with every heartbeat. I thought I was protecting him. I thought it was right. But God, look at him now. He's hollow. And she's out there, living her life, completely unaware of the role I played in this and the plan to get rid of her. And for what? To save him. To obey Mother. AJ closed his eyes, the weight of conscience pressing him into the chair, and for a long moment, all he could do was sit in silence, staring at the floor, trapped between loyalty, guilt, and the unbearable consequences of his actions. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. He hated himself for the role he had played, yet he could not entirely deny the conviction Mona had instilled in him. He believed Avery had betrayed Alessandro, even if a small, nagging doubt whispered otherwise. But the damage had been done, and Alessandro's broken trust was a wound AJ knew he could never fully heal. He looked out the window at the city lights, the neon reflections distorted and fractured in the glass, mirroring the fracture within himself. I can't fix this. Not yet, he murmured, voice hollow. All I can do is hope he survives this, that he keeps his strength. And pray that one day the truth doesn't destroy everything completely. The guilt lingered like smoke in the room, thick and choking, as AJ pressed his forehead against the cool glass. Outside, life continued, unaware of the inner battles waged in silence. He would carry this burden alone, a silent witness to the pain he had helped create, and the love he had unintentionally torn apart. Across the country, Avery moved through the fluorescent-lit halls of a small, rural hospital, her steps measured but weary. She had left everything behind, Alessandro, the mansion, even the life she had begun to imagine with him, carrying only herself and the small, burgeoning life growing within her. At 7.5 months pregnant, each movement reminded her of both strength and fragility, yet she persisted. Double shifts had become her routine again, nights swallowed by work as she pushed through exhaustion and the mounting weight of her body. The ER here was a different world from the bustling city hospital she had left. It was quieter, slower, yet no less demanding. She cared for every patient with the same precision, the same dedication, the same fierce compassion she had always possessed. No one knew of the private battles she fought in every quiet moment, no one knew of the pain she carried silently, or the heartbreak that refused to fade. Even now, as her body ached and her belly grew, as the doctors warned her to rest, she ignored the cautions, determined to remain independent. She had refused Alessandro's offer to pay off her debts before the wedding, before everything had shattered, choosing instead to live on her own terms. Pride, necessity, and the stubborn insistence that she could handle everything alone kept her moving forward, one exhausting shift at a time. Avery's hands hovered over the medical charts, pen in one hand, the other resting on her rounded belly. The life inside her moved gently, a constant, tender reminder of what she had sacrificed and what awaited her. Every patient she tended, every crisis she managed, was another day survived, another day proving to herself that she could endure, that she could remain steadfast despite the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Her co-workers noticed her exhaustion but never questioned her resolve. She smiled politely when they offered assistance, brushing off concern with practiced grace. Avery had learned long ago that independence was both armor and necessity. She had left Alessandro not because she no longer loved him, but because she had been forced into a situation she could not reconcile, accused of betrayal, isolated from the man she trusted most, and pushed to survive on her own terms. Every so often, she allowed herself a private moment to remember. The warmth of Alessandro's hands, the sound of his voice, the quiet evenings in the mansion, they lingered like ghosts, comforting and piercing all at once. And yet, she returned to the work at hand, grounding herself in the life she had chosen, pushing through the fatigue and the swelling pain that reminded her constantly of the life she carried within. The clock ticked relentlessly above the ER entrance, each passing minute a reminder of her reality. Avery adjusted her scrubs, rubbing the small of her back, and took a deep breath. 7 months pregnant, working double shifts, and carrying debts she couldn't hand over to anyone, especially Alessandro, she was exhausted, yet resolute. She had made a choice. To protect her dignity and independence, to protect the child growing inside her, and to honor her own principles, even if it meant living without the man she loved. In the quiet moments between patients, her thoughts drifted to Alessandro, wondering if he still thought of her, if the shadow of betrayal still clouded his mind. He didn't even know he was going to be a father. She didn't have the chance to tell him, before the accusations and his mistrust had pierced her heart like an arrow. She missed him fiercely, the ache in her chest a constant companion, yet she could not risk returning, not while the lies and manipulation of Mona and AJ still loomed over them. She pressed a hand to her belly, whispering softly, "I promise I'll keep you safe and strong." Her eyes returned to the monitors, the charts, the bustling activity around her. Avery pushed the longing, the heartache, and the exhaustion to the edges of her mind. There was work to do, life to sustain, and a future she was determined to protect. And in that small, quiet hospital, amidst the controlled chaos of life and death, she persevered, resilient, steadfast, and unbroken. AJ lingered near the edge of the grand hallway, his footsteps silent against the polished marble. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, he was only passing by Mona's study, but something in the low, measured cadence of her voice drew him closer. She was on the phone, speaking to someone in the Conti family, and the words that reached his ears made his stomach tighten. "He's still distracted, emotionally unstable," Mona said, voice smooth, almost clinical. "We can use this. Alessandro's focus is fractured. We should make our final move. Your men strike. We claim what's ours. My son steps in. Everything falls into place." AJ froze, every muscle rigid. His heart hammered. That was not a casual conversation. That was a plan, a deliberate, meticulously plotted attack against his brother, orchestrated by his own mother. He felt a surge of disbelief, then fear. What had he gotten himself tangled in? He took a careful step closer, straining to hear without being seen. Mona's voice was calm, confident, almost hypnotic. "Yes, AJ has played his part beautifully. He doesn't know anything, but he is still convinced he protected Alessandro. That's crucial. The setup was perfect. Nothing went wrong." AJ's pulse quickened. "She used me." The realization burned. Every action he had taken against Avery, every word he had said to Alessandro, every thought of protecting his brother, had been carefully guided by her. And he had followed along, thinking he was doing the right thing. Mona's next words cut even deeper. Everything is in place. Alessandro still believes everything. He will never suspect the truth until it's too late. AJ thinks he's the hero, his brother's keeper. What a joke. Everything is aligned for you to make your move. AJ pressed a hand to his forehead, trying to steady himself. He had known Mona was ruthless, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. AJ's mind spun, the weight of what he had been part of pressing down on him like a physical force. He sank against the wall, heart hammering, trying to make sense of the enormity of it all. I betrayed him. I trusted her. The thought cut off sharply, replaced by a wave of nausea and disbelief. He replayed every memory of that afternoon in the mansion. Avery's startled expression, her shock, her hands pressed protectively against her stomach. She never even considered it. His stomach twisted. How had he been so blind, so completely manipulated? From behind the slightly ajar door, Mona laughed softly into the phone, oblivious to AJ's presence. Theo, it's simple. Weakening Alessandro emotionally has made him predictable, distracted. The Countess can move freely, without unnecessary bloodshed. AJ's loyalty, misplaced as it was, did all the work for me. Soon, everything falls perfectly into place. AJ pressed his lips together, trying not to tremble. The truth was now undeniable. The careful, meticulous lies he had helped carry out, the manipulation of his brother's heart, he had been a pawn in a game he barely understood. He swallowed hard, the reality of it all settling like ice in his chest. I have to fix this. I have to tell him. AJ's gaze drifted to Mona, still speaking with a tone that was both triumphant and clinical, laying out consequences as if Alessandro were a chess piece rather than a brother he loved. Yes, the professional pressure, the attacks, Alessandro's allies' shifting loyalties, all coordinated. He's distracted, isolated. He'll crumble under the weight without even knowing why. And AJ. He will still think he's done the right thing. Perfect. AJ's hands clenched into fists. She's counting on me to stay silent. To keep believing her lies. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. He had been loyal, protective, naive, but now he saw everything clearly. He could no longer let it continue. Every breath felt heavy, each heartbeat a reminder of the trust he had shattered, the brother he had unintentionally wounded. AJ stepped back, the first spark of resolve igniting. He had been deceived, yes, but now he knew the truth. And now, he had to act.
If you're enjoying Avery and Alessandro's story so far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what happens next. And tell us in the comments, what do you think Mona is planning? How far will she go to hurt Alessandro? Keep listening to find out.
AJ took a steadying breath, entered the study and turned toward Mona. His voice was firm despite the storm of emotions inside him. Mother, we need to talk. Now. Mona's eyes lifted slowly, a faint smirk curling her lips. AJ. I wanted to talk to you. Sit, you look conflicted. AJ's jaw tightened. Conflicted? You've used me. Every step, every word, every action I took, I thought I was protecting Alessandro. I thought I was doing the right thing. You manipulated me, and now I see it all. Mona leaned back, calm, almost serene. Yes. I guided you, but only because the path needed precision. You acted with conviction. You believed you were helping your brother. That belief, it was necessary for everything to work. I never doubted you'd play your part perfectly. AJ's stomach churned, anger and guilt intertwining. You knew exactly what you were doing. You used me against my own brother and Avery, and for what? Power. Control. Everything you've always wanted. Mona tilted her head, voice silky, almost maternal. No, AJ. Not for me. For you and your rightful place. For the family. For our future. Alessandro has never been the right person to lead. And now he has become a man who cannot see the dangers around him. The Countess, our allies, the power structure, everything depends on timing. My actions were guided by necessity, logic. And yes, a touch of foresight. But it was always for the greater plan. AJ ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room, trying to steady his thoughts. Greater plan? You call this greater plan? You've broken everything, trust, loyalty, family bonds. Alessandro. He's devastated. And me? I don't know how I can ever face him again. He turned sharply towards her, narrowed his eyes. Was anything you told me that afternoon the truth? You explained your plan for me to supposedly save my brother. But in reality, you just manipulated me to go along with your secret plan to power. His mother just kept staring at him, almost smirking. Let me get this straight. You told me that there were two threats to Alessandro. One was the public humiliation that would cause a huge scandal and damage his reputation. You said that Avery's parents were blackmailing you for $5 million, otherwise they would go to the press. They would sell their family's secrets to the highest bidder, and explain how they had scammed Avery and taken loans and credit cards out in her name, how her brother was in jail for fraud. You stressed that that would be disastrous for Alessandro, as the future Mrs. DeMarco, the Don's wife, would be associated with people like these. Was any of that the truth? Mona just shrugged. Her family's background was correct, yes, but Alessandro already knew all about it. Avery had told him from the beginning. As for the rest, the blackmail and the potential scandal, no, that was just the first part of my great plan. She laughed then unrepented, causing AJ to grind his teeth. He started pacing again, his fingers pulling his hair, the weight of the manipulation heavy of his chest. Then you said, that Avery was cheating on Alessandro with an old boyfriend, but that, if we went to him and told him, he wouldn't believe us. Instead, you told me that since she was already unfaithful, we should claim that she made a pass at me and suggested we have an affair. You said that if her cheating was more personal, if I made the claim that she secretly wanted me, Alessandro would surely believe it, believe me over her. Either way, his cheating fiancé would finally be out of the way, my brother would be spared of further heartbreak. That was what the whole setup in the library was supposed to be. You had me go to their house, set Avery up and ask her to have an affair, knowing she would say no, and call Alessandro immediately herself. But I see now what really happened. You instructed me to call my brother and further lie, calling Avery every name in the book and accusing her of betrayal. And to twist the knife, to make sure your plan worked, you had me warn him that surely Avery would call and say I was the one to come on to her, just to save herself. But it was the truth, I did suggest the affair so that you could take your pictures. You know, those pictures you then used as a weapon. I thought I was protecting my brother and saving him from an unfaithful fiancé, but in reality, I destroyed him, didn't I? All for your stupid plan to get power, right? AJ screamed the last few words, the sound echoing in the silence that followed. Mona suddenly rose, hitting the top of her desk with her clenched fist. That's right. Everything I told you was a lie. There were never two threats to Alessandro. No potential scandal caused by Avery's family, no cheating with an old boyfriend. She was innocent in all this. She just had to go in order to weaken Alessandro emotionally, make him vulnerable and distracted. Then, it would be easier to strike and take him down. She said all that almost gleefully, no regret in her cold eyes. Mona's gaze softened, almost pitying, though her voice remained controlled. You did exactly what you needed to do, AJ. You acted in what you thought were his best interests, guided by truth as you understood it. He still believes you over anyone else. That was always essential. Without your involvement, the pieces wouldn't have fallen into place. Do not doubt yourself, your heart was in the right place. The outcome. That's on me. And now, we're just one step away from getting everything I've ever wanted. AJ shook his head, incredulous. You manipulated me. You twisted everything I believed, everything I thought I was protecting him from. And for months, I've carried this guilt, thinking I did the right thing, while knowing it hurt Alessandro and Avery. Mona's lips pressed into a thin line. And now, you see the full picture. You understand why it was necessary, why the timing, the actions, the misdirections were all required. But do not let your regret paralyze you. The truth can still be revealed and hurt us both. Don't do anything stupid. AJ's heart pounded. The weight of responsibility pressed down harder than ever. He knew what he had to do, and yet, the path ahead terrified him. His breath hitched. The decision had been simmering in his chest since the moment he realized the depth of Mona's deceit, but now it crystallized into something unavoidable. He could no longer allow Alessandro to suffer under falsehoods, no matter how much it might shatter his world in the immediate moment, how much his brother would hate him for his involvement. He straightened, eyes hard with resolve. I can't let this continue. Alessandro deserves to know the truth. Everything. Even if it destroys me in his eyes, even if it tears him apart for a moment, he has to know. Avery has to be defended. I've been blind, I've been used, but not anymore. Mona observed him silently, expression unreadable. Be careful, AJ. Once the truth is out, there is no turning back. You will set in motion a storm you cannot control. Are you prepared for that? Besides, everything is ready. The contests are moving, Alessandro is going down, stay out of it. AJ swallowed, nodding slowly. I'm ready. I have to be. I've waited too long. I should have acted sooner, realized you were manipulating me, but now. Now I won't wait another second. Alessandro will know the truth. I'll tell him your disgusting plan. Then he'll be prepared against the imminent danger, and when that's dealt with, he'll find Avery and get her back. I don't care about myself. I'll carry whatever consequences come after. I deserve any punishment he gives me. AJ bolted from the room, heart hammering in his chest. Every step down the marble hallway echoed like a drum of urgency. He couldn't waste a single second. Alessandro had to know. The weight of months of lies, manipulation, and misplaced guilt pressed against his shoulders, but he went anyway, propelled by the need to set things right. When he arrived at the mansion, he started running, corridors blurring past him, familiar yet alien. Each corner brought memories of what he had done, the pain he had unwittingly caused, the trust he had shattered. He pressed on, determined, knowing that only the truth could begin to repair what had been broken. Bursting into the library, AJ stopped just inside the doorway. Alessandro sat at his desk, papers scattered around him, eyes distant and hollow, shadowed by months of grief, betrayal and constant attacks. The sight tightened AJ's chest. Brother, he whispered, voice cracking. I have to tell you. Everything. Alessandro looked up slowly, eyes narrowing, sensing the urgency in AJ's tone. AJ, what is it? His voice was cautious, wary. AJ took a shuddering breath, stepping closer. It's about Mona. And everything you think you know about Avery. I was used. I didn't know the full extent. But I have to tell you the truth now. Everything she did, everything she manipulated me into doing, it wasn't what it seemed. I've been carrying lies, thinking I was protecting you, but, his voice broke. It was all wrong. Alessandro's hands tightened on the edge of his desk, the tension radiating off him. AJ, speak clearly. I don't have time for riddles. AJ swallowed hard, eyes brimming with tears. Mona orchestrated everything. The contest, the attacks. Avery leaving. Me being used to lie to you. All of it. She manipulated me, twisted my loyalty, and I helped her without knowing the full plan. I told you things that weren't true. Things about Avery that never happened. I'm so sorry, brother. Alessandro's eyes widened, the shock of AJ's words hitting him like a physical blow. Wait. Explain everything, he demanded, voice low but trembling. Start at the beginning. I need the truth. AJ took a shaky breath, forcing the words out. Mother. Mona. She planned it all. From the moment she married father, she wanted power. She resented you, resented how you became Don, and she wanted to replace you with me. She waited for the right time, when I was old enough to be manipulated. And she did it, Alessandro. She used me. She used everything she could, your trust, your love for Avery, my loyalty to you, to weaken you, both personally and professionally. Alessandro leaned back, swallowing, his mind racing. AJ continued, voice tight with emotion. She made a deal with Theo Conti. The Contis were to intensify attacks on you, make you distracted, pressure your allies, create chaos in your business and your life. Meanwhile, she orchestrated Avery leaving. She used me to tell you lies, lies about her, about Avery supposedly coming on to me, about her trying to seduce me behind your back. I believed it. I thought I was protecting you. I made the call she instructed me to make. I destroyed your trust in her. Alessandro's hands gripped the edge of the desk. Every attack. Every moment these last months. It was her doing. It wasn't just the Contis. AJ nodded, tears slipping freely. Yes. And the photos, the setup in the library. She orchestrated all of it. She made me the messenger, the pawn. We have been carrying her lies, Alessandro. She made us believe Avery betrayed you, but it was all deception. I swear. She lied about everything. The attacks, the threats. It was all part of her plan to weaken you, to place me as Don so she could control everything. Alessandro sat back, a mixture of rage, disbelief, and dawning relief washing over him. So. Avery. She didn't. She never. AJ shook his head emphatically. Never, brother. She never did. She left because you believed me. Because she couldn't fight the lies. She trusted you. You were her world, and she loved me like a brother. I failed her, failed you. But now you know. Everything she went through, everything Mona did. It's all clear now. I'm so sorry, Alessandro. I'm so sorry. Alessandro sat back in the library chair, the confession still echoing in his ears. The weight of the truth pressed down like a physical force, and for a moment, he couldn't move. His pulse thrummed painfully in his temples, every nerve alight with disbelief and self-loathing. How had he been so blind? How had he let himself believe that Avery, the woman who had trusted him completely, who always put him first, could betray him. Images flashed in his mind. The library that day, Avery's shocked expression, the small tear in her blouse, the warmth of her hands on his chest, the laughter they had shared, the promises they had whispered to one another in quiet moments. And all of it, tainted by his doubt, his misplaced trust in AJ, his failure to see the truth. He pressed his palms to his face, inhaling sharply, trying to steady the storm inside him. How could I have misjudged her, he murmured, voice barely audible over the echoing library. Every memory, every tender moment, now cut him like a blade. The betrayal he thought he had suffered was a lie, and yet the pain was real, self-inflicted by his own blindness, by his own lack of trust. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the polished floorboards as if the answers might be written there. The room felt smaller somehow, suffocating, like all the air had been sucked out. Every beat of his heart screamed her name. Yet guilt gnawed at him for not listening, for believing AJ, for letting Mona twist him, for doubting Avery when she had done nothing wrong. Alessandro's jaw tightened, a harsh exhale escaping. He recalled the phone call, the way AJ had spoken, the hesitation in his voice, the words carefully chosen under Mona's manipulation. And he realized, with a jolt of shame and horror, how completely he had failed Avery. He had believed a lie over the woman he loved with everything he had. He had betrayed their pact. No lies, no secrets, no cheating, always trust, always first. His hands curled into fists, then loosened, trembling. I lost her. Because of me, he whispered. The thought clawed at him. Avery had left, heartbroken, and he had done nothing to stop her, nothing to protect her from the consequences of his misplaced trust. Alessandro's gaze drifted toward the empty space across the room where she had been, where she had stood, trembling, torn between love and despair. The memory of her eyes, wide and pleading, cut him to the core. He had seen her leave, had heard the soft click of the door closing behind her, and had done nothing. He had let her walk away, believing AJ over the woman who held his heart. A harsh, bitter laugh escaped him. I made her leave, he murmured, voice rough, choking slightly. The enormity of it pressed down with suffocating weight. Every day, every decision, every moment he had allowed doubt to rule him now seemed like a betrayal worse than any enemy's strike could have inflicted. The Countess, Mona, all the threats, they had worked in tandem, but the deepest wound had been his own failure to trust. He closed his eyes, his mind racing. The library, once a sanctuary filled with warmth and shared memories, now felt like a vault of guilt and regret. His heart ached with her absence, and yet beneath the grief, a spark of determination began to flicker. He would find her. He would make this right. He wouldn't let Mona's machinations or the Conti threats dictate the life he wanted with Avery. Alessandro's hands trembled as he rose to his feet, fists clenched, anger and pain warring inside him. He pivoted sharply, eyes locking on AJ, who stood frozen near the doorway, guilt written across every line of his face. For a heartbeat, the instinct to strike, to unleash the storm of rage that had been building for months, surged through him. But then he saw AJ, the same wide, innocent eyes, the color that mirrored his own, the boy he had helped raise, the brother who had been misled and used. The weight of responsibility tempered his fury. This was not a threat. This was a scared, manipulated young man who had acted out of misguided love. His fist fell slowly to his side. Go, Alessandro said, voice low but controlled, each word heavy with authority and pain. Give me time. Leave me alone for now. AJ swallowed, nodding, relief and sorrow mingling as he backed away. Alessandro didn't watch him leave, he didn't trust himself to speak. The wind outside the mansion seemed to echo the storm raging inside him, a torrent of heartbreak, regret, and the first stirrings of resolve. Alessandro sank back into the chair by the library window, rain now streaking the glass, his mind racing with every memory of Avery. Her laughter, her gentle insistence on honesty, the way she had trusted him completely, all of it was now sharpened by the pain of betrayal he had allowed to happen. But beneath the ache, beneath the guilt, determination began to crystallize. She had left, but she was not lost, not if he could help it. He drew a slow breath, plans starting to form in his mind. First her safety, he murmured, voice hoarse but steady. Then everything else. His hands moved almost instinctively, pulling his phone from the desk, calling Finn, his second-in-command already tracking on ongoing Conti pressures. Orders flowed, precise and controlled, key allies were contacted, his mind on the larger threats looming over the DeMarco family. Maps, lists, contacts, surveillance, everything Alessandro had ever relied on to protect his family and his empire now focused on one goal: uncover the true depths of Mona's manipulation based on AJ's revelations. Strategy and instinct merged, and for the first time in months, a sense of purpose replaced the paralyzing despair. He traced routes through the city, potential safe houses, movements within the rival family, each scenario playing in his mind. His thoughts darted to Avery, alone, unaware of the potential danger approaching, probably still working tirelessly, as always. He clenched his jaw. Anger simmered beneath the surface at the thought of the hardships she faced because of him, because of Mona, because of all the lies that had driven her away. Alessandro's fingers moved across his phone, sending encrypted messages, coordinating discreet searches, contacting trusted allies without revealing too much. Every call, every instruction, every movement was calculated. He could not allow the Countess or any of Mona's network to anticipate his next step. His mind was a steel trap, cold and focused, even as his heart throbbed with longing and regret. "Find Avery," he murmured under his breath, voice taut with urgency. "No matter where she is. No matter what it takes." For the first time in months, Alessandro felt the weight of action instead of inertia. The storm outside matched the storm within him, and he realized that now, at last, he would not be defeated by deceit or heartbreak. He would confront Mona's manipulations, and bring Avery home safely. Where she had always belonged. Alessandro paused, letting his mind scan everything he knew of Avery, her habits, her resilience. He imagined her probably at a hospital, working double shifts despite exhaustion like she always did, despite his objections. She had always known that her fiancé, her love, had been deceived into believing she was unfaithful. She had tried to tell him. He hadn't listened then. His chest tightened. He had underestimated her strength once, he would not make that mistake again. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, letting the rain patter against the window soothe the storm of emotions within him. Then, with a sudden sharp inhale, he opened them, vision clear. He would move swiftly, quietly, and decisively. No distractions. No assumptions. Her safety, above all else. And once she was found, once she knew the truth about AJ, about Mona, about everything, they could rebuild, but only when she was ready, only when she was safe. Alessandro rose from the chair, resolve hardening in his posture. The past months of pain, guilt, and regret had forged him anew. Mona had orchestrated a perfect deception, but he would write the ending. He would bring Avery home, and when he did, he would protect her with everything he had. He wouldn't let her down again. Matters came to a head 2 days later. The night was thick with tension, the city streets slick with rain. Alessandro, flanked by Finn and the closest of his allies, had traced the Conti operations to their core, a warehouse near the docks where evidence of their attacks and expansion efforts were stored. The entire area was dimly lit, shadows stretching like claws across the cracked concrete. Every movement had to be precise, any mistake could lead to disaster. He checked his watch, feeling the weight of months of frustration and fury coiling in his chest. 7 months of betrayal, of attacks on his family, of lies tearing at everything he held dear, it all had led to this. He inhaled sharply, trying to calm the storm inside him. Tonight, the Countess would learn the cost of challenging a DeMarco. Every ally around him knew their role, silent nods and hand signals passing through the team like a ritual. Finn approached, voice low. All in position, Alessandro. They won't see us coming. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Good. Remember, we don't just take them down. We make sure the message is clear. The DeMarco family cannot be challenged anymore. Not by them, not by anyone. The night seemed to hold its breath. Every flicker of light, every shadow, every distant echo of footsteps felt like the heartbeat of fate itself, and Alessandro knew there would be no going back. The operation unfolded with surgical precision rather than chaos. Vehicles moved into place one by one, quiet and deliberate, blocking exits without drawing attention. Lights flickered on inside the warehouse ahead as Alessandro's people secured vantage points, their movements controlled and disciplined. There was no shouting, no sudden explosions of action, only a tightening circle, a silent statement of dominance. Alessandro stepped forward once everything was in position. Rain brushed against his coat, cold against his skin, but he barely felt it. His focus remained fixed on the entrance ahead. The doors opened. Theo Conti emerged surrounded by a handful of his men, their posture tense but restrained. The moment felt heavy, not like a battle, but like the final move of a long chess match. No weapons were drawn. No one needed them. Finn remained just behind Alessandro's shoulder, watchful, ready but calm. Allies from other families stood at measured distances, their presence alone enough to communicate that the balance of power had shifted decisively. Alessandro's voice cut through the night, steady and controlled. 7 months, he said simply. Theo's gaze hardened, but he didn't interrupt. You pushed boundaries. You tested limits. You mistook persistence for strength, and patience for vulnerability and weakness. The words carried weight, not anger, not shouting, not grand gestures. Just renewed stability and inevitability. His voice didn't even rise. It didn't need to. Every word landed with precision. Theo exhaled slowly. The realization settled between them, the Countess had lost leverage, Mona's plan was foiled. Their strategy had depended on Alessandro being fractured, unstable, and weak by personal loss. That man was now gone. Alessandro stepped closer, stopping just within conversation distance. He laid out facts, not threats, shifts in alliances, new agreements, tighter bonds with allies, contracts withdrawn, territories now guarded by combined forces, supply lines quietly redirected. Each point demonstrated that the Countess' recent advances had already been neutralized. This ends today. Now, he said quietly. No more interference. No more attempts at expansion into DeMarco territory. You walk away with nothing. Everything in this warehouse stays behind. He continued for several more minutes, laying down the law. When Alessandro finally finished talking, the outcome was clear: withdrawal from contested areas, restoration of previous agreements, and a quiet acknowledgement that further attempts and attacks would isolate the Countess from allies they could not afford to lose. It was not destruction. It was containment. And it sent a louder message than violence ever could. Do not cross me again, this is your only warning. Disobey me and your organization will be dismantled immediately. I should do it now, especially after everything you did these past 7 months, but I want to make an example out of you. For others who might have the same idea in the future. Don't mess with the DeMarcos. A long silence followed, heavy with unspoken calculations. Theo studied the surrounding figures, the allies aligned behind Alessandro, the undeniable show of unity and strength. Whatever he had expected tonight, it hadn't been this. Finally, Theo gave a small nod. Understood. It wasn't defeat spoken aloud, but it was acceptance. The tension in the air loosened fractionally, like a knot finally cut. Alessandro turned slightly toward Finn, but the motion felt heavier than it should have. It's done. But as he spoke, a sharp flicker of strain crossed his face, subtle, almost invisible to anyone except those who knew him well. The long months, the exhaustion, the relentless tension, the weeks of poor sleep, the meals skipped without noticing, the weight of everything he had carried were finally catching up to him. Finn noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he murmured quietly. Alessandro dismissed it with a small shake of his head, though the stiffness in his movement betrayed him. "Later," he said. For now, the message had been delivered. The DeMarcos had prevailed and stood unchallenged. And for the first time in months, the war that had shadowed every waking moment was finally over. He took a step back, and immediately felt a sharp pull along his ribs, the pressure tightening across his chest. A faint ringing started in his ears. The world tilted slightly. And the cracked rib from a previous attack he had refused to have examined, insisting he didn't have time, began throbbing in time with his heartbeat. Finn's gaze sharpened immediately. "You're not okay." "I'm fine," Alessandro said automatically. He wasn't. But there were still people watching, still expectations resting on his shoulders. He forced himself forward, posture straight, expression unreadable. They walked toward the car together. Only when the door shut behind him and the world narrowed to the quiet interior did the mask finally crack. His breath hitched. Pain flared through his side like a tightening band. The adrenaline that had carried him through the confrontation drained all at once, leaving exhaustion rushing in to fill the space. Finn turned sharply from the driver's seat. "Alessandro." "I just need a minute," he murmured. But the words barely formed before dizziness surged, vision blurring at the edges. His head fell back against the seat. The last thing he registered was Finn's voice, urgent now, stripped of calm. "We're not going home. I'm taking you to the hospital." And for once, Alessandro didn't argue. 20 minutes later, the emergency department doors slid open with a quiet mechanical hum, releasing a burst of antiseptic air and controlled urgency. Finn stayed at Alessandro's side as nurses moved in immediately, their efficiency leaving no room for argument. Within seconds, Alessandro found himself guided onto a stretcher despite his attempts to stand on his own. "I can walk," he muttered. "Yes," one nurse replied calmly, "but you're not going to." Finn almost smiled at that. Questions came rapidly: pain levels, recent injuries, dizziness, breathing difficulties. Alessandro answered automatically, his voice growing slower as fatigue pressed down harder. "Previous trauma to the ribs?" a doctor asked while palpating carefully along his side. Finn answered before Alessandro could deflect. "He took a hit months ago. Refused to get it checked." The doctor's expression sharpened slightly. "That may have been a mistake." Alessandro gave a faint, humorless exhale. "So I've been told." Tests followed quickly: blood work, imaging, oxygen monitoring. The clinical rhythm of the hospital felt oddly familiar, grounding in a way he hadn't expected. For months his world had been chaos, betrayal, relentless pressure. Here, everything moved according to clear systems and defined outcomes. The X-ray confirmed it almost immediately. A cracked rib, partially healed but aggravated by stress and overexertion. That alone wouldn't cause collapse, the physician explained later, reviewing results with calm authority. But combined with severe exhaustion, dehydration, prolonged stress, and what appears to be significant nutritional neglect. Finn folded his arms. He hasn't been eating or sleeping enough. I gathered, the doctor said dryly. Further evaluation revealed the rest of the perfect storm: dangerously elevated stress markers, mild cardiac strain from prolonged adrenaline cycles, dehydration severe enough to cause dizziness, and physical exhaustion bordering on collapse. You pushed too far, the doctor concluded. Your body decided it was finished negotiating. Alessandro listened silently. Part of him wanted to argue. Another part, quieter, deeper, felt nothing but hollow acceptance. When can I leave? He asked finally. The doctor didn't hesitate. You're not leaving today. Alessandro's jaw tightened. I have responsibilities. And you'll still have them when you're healthy enough to handle them, the doctor replied evenly. You're staying at least a week for treatment and observation. After that, minimum 1 additional week of rest at home. Finn nodded immediately. Alessandro looked at him sharply. Don't start. Finn's voice was calm but firm. You collapsed in the car. Silence settled between them. The truth hung heavier than any argument. Eventually Alessandro leaned back against the pillows, eyes closing briefly. A week. The idea felt impossible. And yet, for the first time in months, there was nothing to do but stop moving. Outside the room, Finn quietly began issuing instructions through his phone, reassigning tasks, maintaining pressure on remaining threats, ensuring the DeMarco network continued running without interruption. Inside, Alessandro lay still, breathing carefully against the ache in his ribs. The Conti problem was finished. The war outside had finally slowed. Which left him alone with the war inside. And now there was no distraction left to avoid it. The hospital room was quiet in a way Alessandro had forgotten existed. Not silent, machines hummed softly, footsteps passed occasionally in the hallway, distant voices rose and fell, but calm. Controlled. Predictable. He lay half-reclined in bed, one arm resting across his abdomen, breathing carefully to avoid aggravating the dull ache in his ribs. The IV line tugged gently at his wrist whenever he shifted. For the first 2 days, he had slept more than he had in months. The exhaustion had been deeper than he realized, pulling him under like gravity itself. Now, awake more often, his mind refused to stay quiet. Every time he closed his eyes, memories rose uninvited. Avery's face in the library. The tear in her blouse. The way she had said his name, hurt, incredulous, desperate for him to understand. And his own voice, cold and final, telling her he didn't believe her. He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. I destroyed us. The realization no longer came as a sudden shock. It was constant now, heavy and unavoidable. The door opened softly. Alessandro turned his head. AJ stepped inside hesitantly, pausing just beyond the threshold as if unsure whether he was welcome. He looked exhausted too. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slightly hunched, hands shoved into the pockets of his jacket like a shield. For a moment neither of them spoke. A distance hung between them, filled with unspoken grief, misunderstanding, and betrayal. AJ swallowed. I heard you collapsed, he said quietly. Alessandro watched him without answering immediately. This was the boy he had helped raise. The child who had followed him everywhere. The young man whose voice had shattered his world with a single phone call. And now, seeing him standing there, uncertain, guilty, painfully human, Alessandro felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something softer than the anger he expected. Doctor says I overdid it, Alessandro said finally. AJ nodded quickly, relief flickering across his face at the response. That sounds like you, he said, attempting a small smile that faded almost instantly. Silence settled again. AJ took a cautious step closer, then another, until he stood beside the bed. Up close, Alessandro could see the tension in him, the way his hands trembled slightly, the way he avoided direct eye contact for more than a few seconds at a time. Guilt lived in every movement. I'm glad you're okay, AJ said softly. Alessandro studied him carefully. The apology was there already, unspoken but obvious. The question was whether either of them knew how to begin. He shifted slightly against the pillows, suppressing a faint wince as his ribs protested. AJ noticed immediately. You should rest, he said quickly. I didn't come to. I mean, I can go if you need. Stay. The word came out quietly, but firmly. AJ froze, then nodded, relief flashing briefly across his face before he tried to hide it. He pulled a chair closer and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly together as though holding himself steady. For several moments, neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of everything that had changed between them. Finally, Alessandro broke it. You told me everything, he said, voice low. About Mona. About the Countess. About what really happened. AJ's shoulders tightened immediately. Yes. A pause. I should have told you sooner, AJ added, voice barely above a whisper. I should have questioned her more. I should have. Alessandro raised a hand slightly. AJ fell silent at once. I've thought about that, Alessandro said slowly. Many times. He studied his brother carefully. You believed you were protecting me. It wasn't a question. AJ swallowed hard. Yes. His voice cracked slightly. I thought she was hurting you. That Avery was using you. That you were too in love to see it. His eyes dropped to the floor. I thought I was doing what you would have done for me. The words hung between them. Alessandro felt something twist painfully in his chest, not anger, but recognition. Because it was true. AJ had acted out of loyalty. Misguided, manipulated loyalty, but loyalty nonetheless. You trusted her, Alessandro said quietly. AJ nodded once. She showed me the report. She said there were threats. That Avery was cheating. That she would destroy you. He laughed bitterly under his breath. I didn't even realize she was destroying you herself. Silence again. Alessandro closed his eyes briefly. I should have listened to Avery, he murmured. The admission felt like glass in his throat. I knew her. I knew who she was. And I still chose to believe. He didn't finish the sentence. AJ's head lifted slightly. Pain filled his expression. I broke you, AJ said. Alessandro opened his eyes and looked directly at him. No, he said calmly. We broke each other. The words landed softly but heavily. AJ's breath caught. For the first time since entering the room, he met Alessandro's gaze fully. I don't expect you to forgive me, AJ said quietly. I just needed you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Not like that. Alessandro studied him for a long moment. I know, he said finally. And he meant it. That didn't erase the damage. But it changed something fundamental between them. AJ exhaled shakily, as if holding his breath for months. Relief mixed with grief in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. Alessandro nodded once. Not absolution. But acknowledgement. And for now, it was a start, it was enough. The hospital room had grown quieter as evening settled outside, shadows lengthening across the floor. AJ lingered near the window, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, watching the city lights begin to flicker on one by one. The earlier tension between them had softened, not gone, not healed, but shifted into something steadier. Honest. Alessandro rested against the pillows, exhaustion still pulling at him, though his mind felt clearer than it had in months. For the first time since AJ's confession, they sat together without the weight of unsaid words pressing down on them. AJ cleared his throat. "There's something I need to tell you." Alessandro's gaze moved toward him, attentive but calm. AJ hesitated briefly, as if measuring the right way to say it. "I've been thinking a lot these past months," he began slowly. "About everything. About what happened, about who I am, what I want." He let out a breath. "And about what being a DeMarco really means." Alessandro said nothing, simply watching. AJ turned from the window, stepping closer. "I don't want your life," he said quietly. "Not like that. I never wanted to be Don." The words hung between them, heavy but sincere. Alessandro's expression did not change, but something softened behind his eyes. AJ continued quickly, almost rushing now that he had begun. "Watching you these years. And then seeing what happened when everything fell apart," he shook his head. His voice lowered. "I realized I don't want power. I don't want control. I want to help you, but in my own way." He paused, gathering courage. "I've applied to universities across the country. Law programs." A faint, uncertain smile appeared. "I want to become a lawyer." He watched Alessandro carefully, searching for any sign of disappointment. Instead, Alessandro's brow lifted slightly, not in disapproval, but in quiet surprise. AJ continued, more firmly now. "I want to protect you differently. Handle the legal side, keep you safe where fists and alliances can't. I want to carry part of the weight. Just not the same way you do." Silence followed, not uncomfortable, but full. AJ swallowed. "I don't expect you to be proud," he added softly. "I just needed you to know." Alessandro watched him for a long moment before speaking. "A lawyer," he repeated quietly. There was no mockery in his tone, only contemplation, as if turning the idea over slowly, examining it from every angle. AJ nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "I know how it sounds," he said with a small, awkward laugh. "A DeMarco. Choosing law school instead of everything else." Alessandro exhaled through his nose, the faintest hint of amusement touching his expression. "It sounds ironic," he admitted. "Maybe even dangerous." AJ huffed a breath, relieved by the softness in his brother's voice. "Yeah. I figured you'd say that." "But," Alessandro continued, his tone shifting, quieter, more thoughtful, "it also sounds wise." AJ blinked. Alessandro shifted slightly against the pillows, wincing faintly at the pull in his ribs before continuing. "Power changes shape with time," he said. "What protects a family today is not always what protected it yesterday. We have strength, loyalty, alliances. But we have also paid the price for lacking someone who understands the world outside ours." He met AJ's eyes. A lawyer who understands both sides of that line could be invaluable. AJ stared at him, clearly surprised. "You mean that?" Alessandro's mouth curved faintly. "I do." Something loosened in AJ's shoulders, a tension he had carried for months slipping away. "I don't want to run from who we are," he said quickly. "I just want to build something that makes us stronger without becoming like them." Alessandro studied him carefully, the earnest expression, the nervous determination. For a fleeting second, he saw not the boy who had betrayed him, but the child he had helped raise. The younger brother who had followed him everywhere, who had believed in him without question. Growth. Painful, imperfect but real. "You've changed," Alessandro said quietly. AJ hesitated. "I had to," he replied. Silence settled between them again, heavier now but not cold. Then Alessandro gave a small, almost reluctant chuckle. "The son of a Don becoming a lawyer," he said. "If our father could hear this." AJ snorted softly despite himself. "He'd probably think I lost my mind." "No," Alessandro said after a beat. "He would think you were coming into your own. He would be proud." Their eyes met, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, a fragile thread of understanding stretched between them. AJ's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "I've made up my mind," he said softly, almost to himself. "Next semester, I'll move across the country. Start fresh. University. Law school. A new life. But one that still lets me be here for you." Alessandro studied him carefully. "You really mean that?" he asked, voice low. "You're serious about this? Leaving the life behind?" AJ nodded firmly. "I've never wanted the Don life. I want to help you, yes, but legally. Strategically. Safely. The way I can. Not like a pawn in someone else's game." Alessandro's eyes softened. For the first time since Mona's manipulation was revealed, he allowed himself to see AJ not as the brother who lied and caused heartbreak, but as the boy who had grown into a man of conscience. AJ hesitated, then added, quietly but with conviction, "Alessandro. Mona is my mother, but she never really cared about me. I can't forgive her after the way she manipulated me, and the way she treated you all this time, after all the chaos she had caused and the danger she has brought onto this family. Do what you think is right. I won't stop you, brother. Not now, not ever." Alessandro's chest tightened. He looked at AJ, gratitude and emotion warring across his features. "I know she's your mother, AJ," he said finally, his voice low but steady. He was talking like the Don now, not just a brother. "But tell her. Tell her I'm coming for her, as soon as I find my love." The words landed with quiet finality. AJ's eyes flickered, a mix of relief, understanding, and lingering sorrow. For the first time since everything had begun, the weight between them felt a little lighter. Just then, Finn burst into the hospital room, urgency in his step. "Alessandro," he called, voice tight but controlled. "We found her. Avery. She's safe." Alessandro's head snapped up instantly, the exhaustion, the pain, the bruises from the recent weeks momentarily forgotten. His chest tightened, heart pounding faster than any monitor could measure. "Where?" His voice was sharp, almost breaking. "She's been working at a small rural hospital across the country. I already sent some of our men. She'll be safe, protected. No one will touch her," Finn said quickly, hands raised slightly as if warding off the storm in Alessandro's expression. Alessandro rose carefully from the hospital bed, wincing at the movement, ribs protesting, but his resolve was stronger than the pain. His fingers gripped the edge of the bed for support. "Good," he said, low and steady, though his eyes burned with urgency. "Prepare the car. I'm going to get her. Now." Finn tried to argue. "The doctor advised you to stay in this hospital for a week, followed by another week of bed rest at home. You're not strong enough. A couple more days of waiting won't make a difference." Alessandro just stared at him, temper flaring. Then he leaned in toward him and said in a low voice, "Get me discharged. Then bring the car around." There was no more room for argument. Finn threw his hands in the air, muttered something in Italian and left to find the doctor. AJ stepped closer, voice soft but firm. "Go, brother. Go get her. Tell her. Tell her I'm so sorry. For everything I put between you two." Alessandro gave a sharp nod, eyes briefly meeting AJ's. The unspoken understanding between them, the fragile reconciliation, lingered in that look, a promise that this time, no lies would separate them. 3 hours later, Alessandro left the hospital, each step deliberate, fueled by urgency, love, and the drive to bring Avery home. Finn followed quickly behind him, already arranging the route, the team, the careful approach to ensure nothing goes wrong. "Soon, my love," he thought as he got into the car. He was only a few hours away. Alessandro's eyes darted across the busy ER, scanning every nurse, every doctor, until he saw her. Avery. She looked so beautiful, an angel amidst all the chaos surrounding her. The scrubs hugged her body in a way that immediately stole his breath. Her figure was fuller than the last time he'd seen her. She was pregnant. Around 8 months if he had to guess. His heart skipped, then soared. He was going to be a father. For a moment, he just stood there, frozen, taking in the sight of her. The months of worry, the torment over losing her, all collapsed into a single, overwhelming surge of relief. She was safe. She was here. And then a crippling sense of sadness, grief and shame washed over him. He hadn't known she was carrying his baby. He had already missed so much, because of Mona's manipulation, AJ's lies and his own stupidity and rushed decisions. On that dreaded afternoon, he didn't pause to think harder. He made the wrong assumptions and ultimately the wrong choice, and he lost the most precious thing in the world. Had she known she was pregnant when he had launched his accusations? When she had run crying out of the house they shared? What about now? Was she planning to ever tell him? How could he explain, how could he ask for forgiveness and another try? He had already missed so much. Her pregnancy announcement that never came, the baby's first kicks, all the doctor's appointments, the late-night food runs to satisfy cravings. He didn't even know if they were having a boy or a girl. But most of all, he had missed Avery. Her love, her presence, and the way she completed him. She was the other half of his soul and he had been stupid enough to let others affect him. He had lost her once, and he wasn't too sure if she would take him back now, even if he explained. If he were in her shoes, he didn't know if he would, to be honest. He had to try, though. These past 7 months had been hell for him and obviously a lot harder on her. She was still working hard in a busy ER for God's sake, and she was weeks away from her due date. He took a few determined steps in her direction. He had to make this right. She looked up from her clipboard, startled to see him standing there. Her eyes widened, first with shock, then cautious wariness. "Alessandro," she said, her voice quiet, tinged with disbelief. "I didn't expect, what are you doing here?" He swallowed, trying to steady his racing heart. "I couldn't wait any longer. I had to make sure you were okay." He remained still, even if his whole being was screaming at him to gather her in his arms and never let go. Avery's hand went to her belly instinctively, a protective gesture. You didn't know. I left the test at the house when." Her voice was wary, but a flicker of emotion showed through. Alessandro shook his head, the weight of the past 7 months pressing on him. "I didn't know about this," he said softly, voice catching. "Seeing you like this. We're having a baby." Avery's eyes softened for a heartbeat, but she quickly regained her composure. Alessandro. We need to talk. Somewhere private. Not here, not with everyone watching. He nodded immediately, aware of her need for space. Of course. Cafeteria? Then, he added with a small smile, my treat, trying to remind her of their first dates. She didn't smile back, but she gave a small, cautious nod. Fine. But don't expect me to forgive or forget so easily. His chest tightened at her words, the reality of the months apart, the pain, and the unspoken truths all crashing over him. I don't expect that. I need to make this right. Starting now. You need to know what happened behind the scenes that led us to this. Together, they moved toward the hospital cafeteria, a temporary sanctuary from the chaos of the ER, the first step in bridging the long months of separation. The fluorescent lights there cast a calm glow over the empty tables. The quiet hum of the vending machines and the distant beeping from the ER gave them a small pocket of privacy. Alessandro guided her to a corner table, careful with each step, aware of her belly and the possibility she could lose her balance. He pulled out a chair for her, then took a seat across the table, finally allowing himself to look at her properly. The curve of her stomach, the strength in her posture, the determination in her eyes. Every inch of her radiated resilience, and it was almost overwhelming. He began, voice tight. I don't even know where to start. The last 7 months. I've been a mess. I've been reckless, foolish, consumed by everything I'd lost. Avery's arms folded across her chest. You've been reckless, Alessandro. You have no idea what it's like to survive on your own, to carry life inside you, and to have to face every day knowing that the person you trusted didn't give you the benefit of the doubt, didn't want to talk things out. You didn't trust me when it mattered most. His eyes fell to the table, guilt burning deep in his chest. I know. I should have. I failed you in ways I can never undo. I misjudged, I listened to lies, I let everything get in the way of the truth, of you. Of us. Avery's gaze was unwavering, each word precise, deliberate. You should have trusted me then. Trusted that I would never betray you, that I would never cheat. That our promises, no lies, no hiding, always being honest, meant something. Do you even remember our vows? He flinched at the words, as if she had struck him with a physical blow. I remember everything. Every promise. And I broke them, in the worst way possible. Her eyes softened for a flicker, but her tone hardened again. I won't be your doormat. Someone you remember as an afterthought when it's convenient. If that's how you treated our vows at the beginning, how are you going to treat the vows we might make at our wedding? Think about that, Alessandro. Really think about it. He swallowed hard, the sting of her words driving the weight of his failures deeper. I understand. And I swear, I will spend every day proving that you and our child will always come first. I love you both more than anything. Just give me the chance to show it. Her brows furrowed slightly. You mean after everything? After being gone all these months, after, she shook her head, frustrated. Why should I trust you now? Alessandro swallowed hard, his throat tight. Because I know I've made so many mistakes. I misjudged everything, Avery. But I won't lose you, either of you. Not now. Not ever. Avery studied him for a long moment, her hands resting gently on her belly. The cafeteria's calm was broken only by the voices of the people in the waiting room. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter, tinged with a reluctant hope. We'll see. Actions speak louder than words, Alessandro. Words are easy, cheap. Trust has to be rebuilt, and I'm not going to hand it over lightly. Show me. And this. This is your only chance. Betray me again, and there won't be a next one. He nodded solemnly, his heart pounding, relief and determination battling for dominance. I understand. I'll prove it. I promise. He swallowed against the lump in his throat and added, I'll do whatever it takes. Anything. For as long as it takes for you to forgive me. Avery's gaze softened just a fraction, enough for a flicker of hope to pierce the storm of their past. Then tell me what's happened, she said, her voice quieter now, though still guarded. Explain. Don't leave anything out. Start from that awful day. She pressed her hand against her belly where the baby had just kicked her, and whispered, Did you know that I had taken the pregnancy test that morning? I was so happy. I wanted to call you and ask you to come home immediately, but you were at the office. I decided to wait until you got back in the afternoon. I was trying to decide how to tell you, how to surprise you, when AJ called and asked to come over later in the day. I immediately agreed. I wanted you to have your brother around when we celebrated our baby. But then. Alessandro's chest tightened. Each word was like a hammer striking him. Then everything was ruined, he said, voice low, filled with shame and regret. I'll tell you everything that followed that day and what's happened these past 7 months. And he did. He kept talking for almost an hour non-stop, with Avery interrupting now and then with questions of her own. Her eyes often went wide with surprise, disbelief, and outrage. Everything was out in the open now. Mona's plan for power, AJ's manipulation and contribution to the scheming, the double lie concerning Avery, the Conti family's constant attacks and the threat they posed to the DeMarco legacy. He finished with his collapse and brief hospitalization. Avery sat there stunned. She couldn't believe everything she'd just heard. She had sensed that Mona didn't like her, but to use her and her family background in order to hurt and weaken Alessandro was just crazy. Her mind was buzzing with all this new information. She looked across the table to the man she still loved. He looked tired and pale, his blue eyes hollow and dull. I need some time to think, Alessandro, to absorb everything, to decide where we go from here. And you should go back to your hotel and rest. You shouldn't even be here, you shouldn't have left the hospital against your doctor's advice. Go straight to bed and for God's sake take whatever medication you were prescribed. Alessandro's smile stretched across his face. Always thinking about me, taking care of me, even though I hurt you. Whatever, mumbled Avery. Just go. And with that, the first step had been taken. The conversation had begun. The bridge between 7 long months of separation and the future they could still build together was fragile, but it existed. The days that followed were a careful dance of persistence, humility, and patience. Alessandro had returned with a new purpose. Making amends. He sent messages, small gifts, thoughtful notes, each one acknowledging his mistakes, each one a quiet plea for forgiveness. Yet Alessandro didn't pressure Avery, nor did he try to force reconciliation. Each gesture was deliberate, measured, designed to show her he had changed, that he understood the gravity of the betrayal and the hurt he had caused. Avery observed it all, quietly curious. She didn't intervene, didn't respond immediately. She watched him, the way someone might study a familiar path after a storm, cautious, protective, waiting to see if the ground could be trusted again. One evening, a simple message arrived on her phone. I'll be outside the ER on your break. Coffee. Just for 30 minutes. I don't ask for more. I just need a chance to show you I mean what I said. Let's have a date, Avery. She hesitated, then replied. Fine. 30 minutes. When he arrived, Alessandro was unassuming, holding 2 cups of coffee, a small bag of pastries from her favorite bakery. The sight of him there, patient and careful, made her chest tighten. This was the man she had loved, stripped down to his essence, humbled by his own mistakes. They didn't speak at first. They sipped coffee quietly, the city lights outside casting reflections on the cafeteria windows. Each sip, each glance, was a small test, a silent negotiation of trust being rebuilt. Alessandro finally broke the silence. "I know I don't deserve this chance. But I will spend every day earning it. I'll wait as long as it takes, however long you need." Avery's lips pressed together, her gaze softening for just a fraction. She didn't forgive yet, but she noticed. She noticed the effort, the sincerity, the way he was willing to be vulnerable, even in front of others who had always seen him as untouchable. This was the first step in a slow, deliberate journey back toward each other. And for the first time in months, the distance between them felt like it could actually be crossed. Over the next several days, Alessandro's efforts became more visible. He didn't just send notes or messages, he acted. He lingered in the hallways of the hospital when Avery passed by, offering a supportive smile. He made small, thoughtful gestures. Bringing her favorite lunch, leaving a carefully folded blanket for her break, arranging for her to have a spa day on her day off. Avery had appreciated that gift more than anything. She was pampered all day and even had a massage specifically for pregnant women. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt that relaxed. He also insisted on accompanying her to all her doctor's appointments, especially this close to her due date. She'd been having Braxton Hicks contractions more often, and they always felt like the real thing. Every time Alessandro was close and experienced them, he always went pale and started stuttering. Avery thought that was cute. She would remember the first time he saw their baby on an ultrasound for the rest of her life. As the heartbeat whooshed and filled the room, the proud father had sat there in awe, tears streaming down his face. He held her hand tight and whispered his love to the baby. When he had said, "Daddy's here," for the first time, Avery couldn't hold back a sob. Then he was given a printout picture of the baby. He kept looking at it and brushing his fingers over it for what felt like hours, before kissing it and reverently putting it in his pocket for safekeeping. That was what it was supposed to be like from the beginning, Avery thought, but the moment was stolen from them by a cruel woman. Avery noticed all his actions. She didn't intervene, but she watched. She saw the patience in his eyes, the careful tone in his voice, the way he carried himself differently, less pride, more awareness, more humility. She began to wonder if they could make it this time. One quiet evening, Alessandro left a small, handwritten note on Avery's locker. "No promises, no gifts today, just wanted to say that I'm here. Always. I love you." She found it later, and for the first time since their reunion, a small, hesitant smile tugged at her lips. She wasn't ready to forgive fully, but hope bloomed. 2 weeks later, Alessandro arrived at the quiet bistro he had reserved, his hands slightly trembling despite his usual control. The soft glow of the string lights outside mirrored the nervous hope in his chest. He hadn't seen Avery smile wide or laugh like she used to yet, and tonight, he hoped to see it again. Avery entered, wearing a loose, flowing dress that skimmed her belly, the glow of late pregnancy making her look radiant. Alessandro's breath caught. Seeing her like this, strong, beautiful, unbroken, reminded him of everything he had risked losing. "Alessandro," she greeted him, her voice calm but wary. "You sure you're up for this? A night out? You had meetings all morning, then spent your lunch with me, and now this. You've barely had time to rest after the hospital." He smiled softly, and pulled out her chair. "I needed to. I wanted to. Tonight, it's just us. No distractions, no chaos." Just you and me. She raised an eyebrow, skeptical but willing. All right. Let's eat. The baby is starving. He threw his head back and laughed, the sound so unfamiliar in the months they were separated. They settled at a quiet table near the back. Alessandro reached out, gently placing a hand over hers. I know I hurt you. More than I can put into words. I misjudged, I believed lies, I let my doubts consume me. But from now on, you and our baby will always come first. No exceptions. I want to build a life with you, with trust, with honesty, like we had planned from the beginning. I want to rebuild us, if you let me. Avery studied him, her gaze softening. You've said a lot over the past weeks, she replied. But tonight, actions matter. I want to hear your thoughts on boundaries, on what we can do to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. I won't forgive everything lightly, Alessandro. I need to know we can move forward safely, together. He nodded, squeezing her hand gently. We'll set boundaries. We'll communicate. I'll never take your trust for granted again. The candlelight flickered between them, reflecting the tentative hope that had begun to grow. For the first time in months, their connection, strained, tested, nearly broken, felt real again. As the evening progressed, Alessandro and Avery talked openly, carefully threading around past wounds while building toward a shared future. Alessandro listened more than he spoke, taking in every word, every concern, every hesitation. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to defend himself. He simply absorbed her feelings, nodding, validating, promising action rather than empty words. I need honesty, Alessandro, Avery said, her hands resting gently on her belly. If we do this, try again, there can't be any more misunderstandings. No secrets. No assumptions. Every decision, every step, every word must come from us, together. Alessandro's chest tightened at her firmness. I understand. I've lived with the consequences of my failures every single day. I don't take this lightly. I will spend every moment proving to you that I can do better, that I will put you and our child first, always. She studied him carefully, the lines of doubt softening. Actions, Alessandro. I can forgive words, but I need to see change. You've shown me glimmers already. I want to believe them, but I won't risk trusting blindly again, especially now that I have a baby to protect. He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I promise you, glimmers will become constant. I swear, Avery. I love you so much. I'll protect and cherish both of you, above everything else. Just give me the chance to show it. Her eyes glimmered, a mixture of hope and caution. Then. We'll try. Together. No outside interference. No secrets. Only us. He nodded, a mixture of relief and determination flooding through him. Together. Always. They leaned in, holding each other close, crying softly, their foreheads touching. The weight of months apart, the grief, the misunderstandings, began to lift in that quiet, tender moment. And then it happened, a sudden gush that made Avery gasp. Alessandro's eyes widened in alarm. Was that, he asked, his hands instinctively moving to support her. Yeah, she said, smiling through the tension and pain. It's time. The night was quiet outside, but inside the hospital, tension pulsed like electricity. Avery's hand gripped the side rail of the hospital bed, her knuckles white. Contractions had been steady all day, and now, as the intensity increased, her body tensed uncontrollably. Alessandro hovered nearby, pacing, every instinct on edge. He had been with her throughout the past weeks, present, attentive, watching her every move, knowing that the moment they had been waiting for, the moment they became parents, was finally here. Suddenly, the monitor beeped sharply. Avery's blood pressure dropped. The calm focus of the ER staff shifted to rapid, urgent action. A doctor called out, "BP's low. We need to stabilize her immediately." Nurses moved with swift precision, adjusting IVs and medications, monitoring vitals. Alessandro's heart raced. He reached for her hand, holding it gently, trying to provide calm amidst the chaos. "Avery, look at me. You're doing so well." "I'm right here," he murmured, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "I know. She gasped between contractions. "I feel lightheaded." "You're okay," Alessandro said, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. "We're okay. Focus on breathing. I'm not going anywhere." Minutes stretched like hours, each one a mix of tension and hope. The doctors stabilized her vitals, administering oxygen and fluids, ensuring the baby was safe. Alessandro's hand never left hers, his thumb tracing small, steady circles. Through the intensity, a quiet determination settled over him. This wasn't just about him or the past anymore. This was about Avery, about their child, about the family they were building. Every fear, every worry, every regret had led to this moment, and he would be here, unwavering, until the baby came. The room was a controlled whirlwind of motion and focus. Avery's cries echoed with every contraction. Alessandro never leaving her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement. And then, a moment of perfect, chaotic stillness. The doctor's voice cut through the tension. "Here she is. It's a girl." A mixture of relief, awe, and overwhelming love washed over Alessandro. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes as he leaned over to see their child for the first time. Avery, exhausted but radiant, let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The nurse placed the baby on Avery's chest. Tiny fingers curled around her mother's, and she let out a small, strong wail. Alessandro bent closer, tracing the delicate features, and felt a deep, unbreakable bond form instantly. "She's perfect," Alessandro whispered, voice choked with emotion. "Our daughter." Avery smiled through her exhaustion. "Maria Angelica DeMarco." "Maria, after your mother," she said softly, "so she'll always carry a piece of her grandmother. Angelica, because she looks like an angel, and of course your name, your family's legacy." Alessandro couldn't control his tears then. "It fits her, it's perfect." He kissed Avery's temple, brushing damp hair from her forehead. He touched his finger to his daughter's hand, and the baby held on to it tight. He felt that hold around his heart too. "She has your strength, Avery." And look at her eyes, he peeked down at their daughter, marveling at the deep, clear blue that mirrored his and AJ's eyes, already a living reflection of the DeMarco history. For a few quiet moments, nothing else existed, no past betrayals, no enemies, no chaos. Only them. Only their child. Only the beginning of this new chapter. A few days later, Avery and baby Maria Angelica were discharged from the hospital. Alessandro brought the car around and waited outside, his heart racing with anticipation. When they emerged in the standard hospital wheelchair, bundled carefully in blankets, he swept them both into his arms, holding them as if he could shield them from the entire world. Later that same day, back at the DeMarco mansion, the atmosphere was transformed. Rooms were prepared with warmth and comfort, and small touches, soft blankets, a bassinet in Alessandro and Avery's room, and little toys, signaled the new life that had arrived. AJ watched quietly from the doorway, a proud smile spreading across his face. He had been a witness to the chaos and heartbreak, to the manipulations and mistakes, and now he was seeing the family start anew. He knelt down, allowing Maria Angelica to gurgle happily in her father's arms. "Hello, Principessa," he whispered softly, kissing her tiny hand. "Uncle AJ's going to spoil you rotten." Alessandro laughed quietly, a genuine, unburdened sound. "She's already got you wrapped around her finger, AJ." AJ grinned. "I don't mind one bit. She deserves it." A few weeks had passed since Maria Angelica's arrival. The mansion, once echoing with tension and uncertainty, now hummed with quiet warmth and a new rhythm, the gentle chaos of a newborn's needs, Alessandro's careful guidance, and Avery's steady presence. The couple settled into a gentle routine, sharing quiet, tender moments with their daughter, marveling at each small milestone. Their new start was now filled with morning cuddles, laughter, soft coos, gentle embraces, and quiet breakfasts on the terrace, with Alessandro carefully attending to his work while keeping family time sacred. AJ visited often, doting on his niece, whispering to her, and teasing Alessandro and Avery about their new, bossy little manager, of the household. He helped in every way he could, while preparing for the next chapter of his life. "I'm going to miss her so much when I leave for my studies," he told Alessandro one evening, sitting beside him in the nursery as Maria Angelica slept peacefully. "But I've finally found what I want, and now I have her to protect too." Alessandro placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, pride and understanding evident in his eyes. "I know, AJ. You've grown so much. I can see it. Just don't forget, whatever happens, you're still my brother first. I'm very proud of you." AJ smiled, touched by his big brother's words. But then, he finally asked the question he had been avoiding. "What about Mona? I haven't seen her since everything was revealed. I heard that she approached the Countess for protection. She's afraid of what you'll do to her after everything came to light." Alessandro put his hand on his brother's shoulder again. "Don't worry, she'll get what she deserves very soon. No one can protect her from me. She has to pay for what she's done." In the days that followed, Mona's influence crumbled completely. Stripped of all power, wealth, assets and authority within the DeMarco empire, she faced the consequences of her schemes, powerless to harm the family she had tried to dismantle. With nothing more she could do, no more allies around to help her, she was banished from the city after her betrayal was fully exposed. She left quietly, leaving everything, including AJ, behind. Not that he minded. He had already disowned her after learning about the way she had used him, and had cut off all communication. Her departure and the way the enemies had been dealt with signaled the end of scheming and danger towards the family. Peace finally settled over the estate. The DeMarco legacy remained secure, the family united, happy and safe under Alessandro's steady hand. One sunny afternoon, as AJ held Maria Angelica in his arms, Alessandro looked around the house, the laughter, the soft chatter, the smell of baby powder and fresh coffee, and felt a deep sense of peace. And as his baby girl cooed happily in her uncle's safe arms, he smiled, knowing these small joys were what he had been protecting all along. Finally, the day came for Alessandro and Avery to marry. The wedding was intimate, held in the mansion's grand garden. Close friends and family were gathered, the late afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the terrace. Maria Angelica, the living symbol of their love and resilience, sat peacefully in AJ's arms, swaddled in a soft blanket. The proud uncle stood tall, executing the role of best man perfectly, as he remained by his brother's side. As the priest began the ceremony, he paused at the familiar line, "If anyone knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Just then, Maria Angelica let out a sudden, joyous coo, loud enough to make everyone laugh, even the stoic relatives. The ice was broken, the moment lightened, and Alessandro chuckled as he leaned down to whisper to the baby. He gently lifted her, holding her in his arms so she could be part of the circle while he and Avery exchanged vows. Her small hands brushed against both of them, symbolic of the new family they were creating together. AJ handed over the wedding bands with a smile, the baby cooing again as if approving of her uncle's efforts. Laughter and tears intertwined seamlessly as the family celebrated the union. The vows flowed naturally, promises of love, trust, loyalty, and unwavering devotion. Avery's eyes glistened with tears. Alessandro's voice was steady but thick with emotion. Every word felt earned after the trials, betrayals, and reconciliation they had endured. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, tears of joy glistening in their eyes, the mansion echoed with laughter and happiness. The baby cooed again in response. AJ watched his niece and beamed with love. He focused on her blue eyes that matched his, Alessandro's, and their late father's, and reflected a lineage of hope and resilience. The DeMarco family, tested by betrayal and chaos, had emerged stronger, united, and ready to embrace the future together. And for Alessandro and Avery, with Maria Angelica cradled between them, love, loyalty, and trust had been fully restored. Their future looked bright and promising. Together they could face anything and win. Because love did conquer all in the end.
Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. If you love the story of Avery and Alessandro, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. And if you haven't watched part 1 yet, check it out. It's where it all began. The link is in the description. See you in the next story.